Hey, welcome back to the About the Labor podcast here at VikingsTerritory.com. I am BJ Reidell back here with my guy, Drew Mahowald. And today we're talking about a Minnesota Vikings victory, just as Drew and I predicted on the last show here. Vikings come out on top 29-19 in the home opener against the New Orleans Saints on Monday Night Football. Prime time game, prime time performance. It was an excellent show all the way through. Basically, full 60-minute effort for the Vikings tonight. Very exciting stuff. So, plan today is kind of just a free-flowing discussion, instant analysis, instant reaction, and just kind of our general thoughts on a first viewing of the game. Obviously, we'll get more in depth on the next episode here, as we always do. Then we'll start moving on into the Pittsburgh Steelers, because it seems like this Vikings team is coming out hot, and they're cooking with gas early. So not a whole lot of negatives tonight, but we will try to point out as many, reasons for concern as we can possibly find in such a essentially flawless performance all the way around. But first, let's knock out the sponsor note, as always here. Black Stack Brewing, brand new brewery smack dab in the middle of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Wide range of clean and flavorful brews, massive bright tap room, perfect for intimate settings, all the way to special events. Black Stack Brewing, 755 North Pryor, just north of Menards, off of University Avenue. And then shout out to our sponsors over at the Twin Cities Directory, the best way to explore delicious bites and fun-filled nights at Minneapolis and St. Paul have to offer. Check it out at www.twincities.directory. That's www.twincities.directory, helping you discover the real Twin Cities. All right, Drew. So, like I just said, fairly flawless performance front to back here. Got off to a bit of a shaky start on offense, but saw the Saints drive down the field early. Their opening drive, it looked like they were going to get 6 points, but they ended up only getting 3. The bend but don't break defense was kind of the mantra tonight, it seemed like. Let's start off on the offensive side of the ball. We've got a lot to get through here in about 60 minutes. So, Sam Bradford, I mean, what else can you say about the guy? I mean, heck of a performance in light of all of the scrutiny he has faced this offseason. Vikings didn't score a touchdown the entire preseason with him at the helm. He throws 3 of them tonight. What'd you think of his performance?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, me and you, I think, both kind of, it's not that surprising, really, to see him throw as many dimes as he did tonight. We both knew how accurate he was as a quarterback, as a passer, and it was just a matter of getting time to throw. And that's exactly what happened tonight. He got, all 5 new offensive line starters, and all of them really stepped up and played really well. Riley Reef, in particular, did not allow pressure on that blind side. Tremendous performance from him. Mike Remmer stepped up, I thought. Besides I think he gave up 1 sack, and then there was a holding penalty, but other than that, he had a good extra second or so on average per snap than he has had in the past to throw. So tremendous ups to the offensive line for giving him time to throw, and that's where you're going to see Bradford sling these dimes all over the place, because he's had that accuracy. That's never been the problem in his career. Right. There's been, lack of weapons, lack of offensive line protection, lack of running game, and all of that stuff kind of surrounded him tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. You can knock Sam Bradford for not climbing the pocket or check down Charlie or whatever it is that you want to knock him for. Vikings Twitter always seems to find a way, right? But overall, the accuracy, I mean, it does not get more surgical than Sam Bradford was tonight, to be quite honest with you. I mean, he was up and down the field. I mean, what was that? The series of plays, I believe it was the first touchdown the Vikings had. There's the 21-yard completion to Bright, which was absolutely absurd. Then you fit one into a tight window. I can't remember who mixed in the middle.
It was Thielen. The first play was Thielen on the drive.
Okay, Thielen
over the middle on a seam route out of the slot.
Yep.
Which Bradford checked into, and then the right crosser over the middle.
And then you finish it off with the Diggs touchdown on a play that, I mean, the technique that he threw that ball with was, let's say that coaches probably wouldn't recommend it, but
he was open enough where he could get a little bit.
I mean, I'm not trying to knock the technique. I'm simply saying that
he sold the play action fake well enough that it didn't really matter.
Right. But it was that drive really set the tone for what the Vikings were trying to do. Honestly, the first 15 minutes of the game, well, honestly, maybe a little bit more than 15 minutes, but the first 15 to 20 minutes of the game really set the tone for what we were going to see today. Bend but don't break defense, and an offense that was consistently getting first downs. I mean, I think it was the first 3 third down conversions the Vikings had they all were able to find a way to get. They were able to find a way to convert for first downs on third. They were, they were surgical. I mean, Sam Bradford he was lights out tonight, and this is it's honestly it was a kind of a redux of what we saw last year when he opened against Green Bay at US Bank Stadium. It was the same type of showing where he was critically accurate downfield, making good decisions. I think it was 85% completion tonight. He just built off of that performance last season. It seemed like he came in this game ready to go. I mean, even Mike Remmers said before the season started that they were very confident in what they had been building, that the chemistry was working, that this team was going to be ready to roll on Monday night. A lot of people didn't believe them. A lot of people were very nervous about this game, but the Vikings really shut up a lot of people tonight.
Well, I mean, you mentioned the chemistry on the offensive line. This group had not played a snap together all preseason.
Right.
Or, I mean, I've seen practice. That's the only chemistry they've built with each other. So to get this kind of performance against, not the best defensive line in the world, but there's a couple studs on that defensive front we talked about with Sheldon Rankins and Cameron Jordan, and these guys are, not elite players, but they're stars. And that side of the defensive line didn't do a whole lot. So really major ups to Mike Remmers, to Joe Berger, Pat Elflein especially too, on a couple of these screen plays where he was getting out in space and making plays. From the offensive perspective, I think this is really as good as I could have hoped for.
This is as good as we've seen,
right?
Honestly.
And then I think this is about a similar type performance from Sam Bradford that we saw week 2 last year against Green Bay. I would probably put his game last year against the Packers probably a little bit up as far as performance goes. But when you get the running game of Dalvin Cook over 120 yards, you get the protection that Sam Bradford had. All of that combined, you get the higher numbers for Bradford and the overall better success of the offense. So, I said this all offseason. Bradford's accuracy is second to none in the NFL. His ability to throw from the pocket when there's a pocket is very, very good, elite.
When there's a pocket, yeah.
Right. And he just hasn't had a pocket. And now tonight he had a pocket. I believe he's only pressured on 6 of 35 dropbacks or something like that. And we saw the results. It's phenomenal. So if the Vikings offensive line can keep this up, I think this offense can be really good.
Absolutely, absolutely. And part of what made the offensive line so effective tonight was Dalvin Cook, honestly, being able to get some push, finishing his run strong. Let's talk about that running back depth chart as a whole here, starting with Dalvin Cook. I mean, the rookie was exceptional tonight. I think at least myself, you included, we're kind of expecting this type of performance from the rookie after seeing him at camp, after seeing him during the preseason. He seemed like he got stronger as the game went on. Obviously, he finished his night with his 33-yard long out of the shotgun, showing Adrian Peterson how to effectively maneuver the ball on the ground out of that set. Dalvin Cook was absolutely phenomenal. He finishes his night with 22 carries and 127 yards on top of Sam Bradford's 346 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean,
Oofta.
I just opened the show by saying, what else can we say about Sam Bradford? But I mean, what else can we say about Dalvin Cook? I mean, he was, throughout the majority of the night, he was probably an average to above average rusher. Some of that is on the offensive line for not opening up a ton of running room, but he was getting stuff down on the ground. As I've said in the past during some of our film analysis, he finishes his runs with authority. My God, this guy is a bowling ball when he gets kind of a crease and is able to get skinny in between the tackles, and then if he gets a one-on-one tackling situation, he's falling forward for extra yards. I mean, the one knock on his game really was the 2 dropped passes.
Yeah.
One ball that was on third down, which was fairly inexcusable. Especially because the Vikings could have gotten 6 points, and at that point in the game, it might have sealed the victory. But the blitz pickup was absolutely exceptional. The rushing as a whole, above average for sure. I mean, what'd you think of the rookie's night?
It's as a rookie, being thrown into the spotlight on Monday Night Football with the national TV audience watching and getting 24 touches. In your first performance and then putting up that kind of production, you can't ask for much better than that. And I think the one thing I noticed that kind of jumped out to me was, obviously we knew about his speed kind of burning around the edge, kind of getting to that corner. on these outside runs, but I didn't know how well that would translate from NCAA football or Division I FBS football to the pros. And so far, so good. He had a couple of nice runs where I think his first real successful run of the night in the first half, where I think he got 8 or 9 yards on it, was an outside run where he just burned it to the edge, and he got to the corner that I did not believe he would get to. And then, of course, his last run of the night, that 33-yarder that you mentioned, out of shotgun, just a sweet play. Just ran around everybody. He just got to that corner, burned, and got. I mean, it's the angles that players have to take to get to him are not, they're not the normal angles that you'd take for a running back. So there's no doubt about it. This kid's special. He's going to be great, and I think he's getting the bulk of the carries for the foreseeable future, and I think that's to be expected.
Yeah, so Dalvin Cook overall, we talked a little bit about the rushing prowess was he was sufficient. From a rookie perspective, he was outstanding. He breaks Adrian Peterson's rookie mark for his debut with that 33-yard run. He ends up going over Adrian's mark. He goes over 100 yards. The drops, catching the drops as a receiver are. I wouldn't consider this to be a concern because he generally is going to catch those balls in his sleep. I think he had some pregame jitters.
It looked like it, yeah. He was looking forward before he caught the ball. Like he wanted to make somebody miss before he had the ball in his hands.
Yeah, that's a classic rookie error. And these are the things that we're going to have to accept with the fact that yes, he's playing to the playing at such a high level that we kind of expect him to make all of these plays right, even though he is a rookie. But at the same time, we need to remember this is his first year in the NFL. He's going to make some dumb mistakes. He's going to look upfield before watching the ball goes in all the way into his hands. I'm sure the coaches are going to watch the film with him, and they're literally just going to say to him, Dalvin, if you wait a split second longer and just watch the ball all the way into your hands, this becomes a 14-yard touchdown or whatever it is. These are things that they were not great. It was, knocks on his debut, but these aren't concerns that I have moving forward with Dalvin Cook. I fully expect him to catch these passes moving forward here. I really think that a lot of this was just, debut jitters. And as the game went on, as I said before, he got stronger. It seemed like he was able to sort of alleviate his own personal concerns about making his debut in the NFL as the night went on, as he got more comfortable running the ball, as he got more comfortable running routes, and as he got more comfortable picking up blitzes, primarily on third down. Let's talk a little bit about Latavius Murray and Jerick McKinnon, how they fit into this situation now. Murray, we saw only get 2 touches. Jerick McKinnon was back as the kick return guy for the most part. I believe he had something, I can't remember exactly how many touches he had tonight, but he had a couple of nice receptions, particularly that longer one.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of that was the screenplay where Elflein snapped the ball and immediately went out into space and made a crushing block. Kind of, right. You saw the movement there and the desire kind of to just run out in space and crush someone. So that was McKinnon's long reception, I believe.
Right. We look at this now. We see 75% of the touches are going to Dalvin Cook. That's not including the targets that he dropped as well. So Dalvin Cook, it seems like, is going to be the focal point moving forward. Latavius Murray fumbles his first handoff as a Viking. That worked out well for Kareem Hunt. It did not work out as well for Latavius Murray. He gets one more touch after that tonight. The big money free agent back. Where does he fit into this equation moving forward here?
I don't think tonight is a fair indication. I really don't. He fumbled his first carry. I don't think that means anything moving forward. He's not going to fumble his first carry every single game.
You'd hope not.
Right. Yeah. But I think number 2, I think he's still going to be a guy that they'll like to go to in short yardage situations. I guess, and he'll have the advantage over McKinnon in that aspect, I think. If they have to choose between Murray and McKinnon, say, if Cook needs a breather or whatever, and it's 3rd and 2, they're going to throw Murray in there. So not that he's completely out of this, running back committee, but I think he's definitely going to have a smaller role than people expected when he signed. And part of that's because of Dalvin Cook just being, exceeding expectations already. But part of that, too, is I think the injury that Murray had this offseason.
Yes.
I think he was supposed to be ready for training camp, and he was not. He missed almost all of it, and he was behind. And if you get behind, that's probably not good. Mike Zimmer, obviously, from what we know, is not a fan of that. So
Yes.
That's going to hurt too. And I don't think his role is going to be pretty small moving forward this year. It's going to be kind of different than his role in Oakland last year.
Yeah, we make the joke all the time that you can't make the club if you're in the tub. Sometimes you can make the club even if you're in the tub, but your role is significantly reduced when you got a guy like Dalvin Cook behind you, and I think that's what we're seeing from Latavius Murray. I still think that he's a guy that's going to contribute on offense for the Vikings this season. I just think that, like Drew just said, he's probably going to contribute significantly less than we thought when he signed, and honestly, significantly less than he thought when he signed, I imagine, as well. We saw Dalvin Cook emerge as a multi-dimensional threat today. We talked a little bit on the Vikings Territory Roundtable, which you can also check out on VikingsTerritory.com, that the fact that Dalvin Cook was so good at pass protection on third down might be a reason, a primary reason, if that, for why Latavius Murray wasn't brought onto the field as much, as we kind of expected him to be. Considering what we knew about Dalvin Cook coming into the season, knowing that he was an effective rusher already, guy that can run out of multiple sets, a guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield. The one question mark we really had with him was, first of all, the off-field issues that he's been a model citizen since his arrival, and then the second being his pass protection. And man, he has improved dramatically over the course of just 3 months in terms of just getting in front of guys and really laying a blow. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's not messing around out there. Dalvin Cook takes no prisoners, whether he's rushing the ball or pass protecting. He's giving max effort out there, and honestly, I think it's a little concerning if you look at Adrian Peterson's career and the fact that he never learned how to block over the course of 10 years in Minnesota, and we see Dalvin Cook learn how to block in about 3 months, at least from a technical standpoint. I think that says a little bit about Adrian Peterson's career. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit more about him as we get into the defensive side of the football later on in the show here. But let's talk about probably, with exception of Sam Bradford, probably the most impressive position group tonight was that wide receiver duo in Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. Obviously, Laquan Treadwell has 1 catch for 7 yards as well.
Career day.
Thanks for contributing, Laquan. But I mean, the receivers. I mean, I extrapolated the numbers here as to what we're looking at. In terms over
you
the
did
course,
the 16-game season thing
over the course of the 16-game season. I'm trying to pull it up right now.
I'm sure Thielen's numbers look kind of fun.
Yeah, his I believe it's for Adam Thielen. He's on pace for 2,512 receiving yards, 144 receptions. Diggs, 112 receptions, 1,488 receiving yards, and 32 touchdowns. So, yeah, it doesn't really seem sustainable. But
probably not.
But man, what do you think?
They could play the Saints every week, maybe.
Yeah, they could play that Saints defense every week, yeah. But just overall, what do you think of the performance from your guy Adam Thielen and my guy Stephon Diggs?
Well, I think we saw how well Thielen can play from the slot. That was kind of the transition, the story to watch from last season to this season was Thielen moving into the slot and moving Diggs outside. I think I don't think this is actually a reason that was said by the coaching staff, but I think part of the reason was to just keep Diggs healthy. Which is ironic because Diggs got drilled on a pass down the sideline in this game and somehow was hardly nicked from it. But
popped right back up.
Right, but I think Thielen in the slot provides more mismatch opportunities because normally those guys are smaller cornerbacks, and Thielen does have the size advantage over Diggs there. So that I think Bradford recognized that a couple times and checked out of plays.
He mentioned that during his post-game presser as well.
He mentioned that in the presser that he checked a couple times into one-on-one matchups for Thielen. So that's why Thielen had the big night, and then Diggs obviously is just a phenomenal player. The knocks I've had on him before have been about his contested catch abilities, and he won multiple opportunities for those contested catch, 50-50 ball catching traffic situations. The touchdown on the fade route or the kind of the jump ball there. He had the long pass down the sideline to open the second half. He had the one where he did get clocked, which is by the way, a pinpoint pass from Bradford again, in between a couple of defenders. So, I mean, both guys, it looks like a really, really good tandem there. Again, if the offensive line provides protection, you have a couple guys who are still severely underrated in this league, and they have, I think, one question we had from our Twitter followers was, can they both get 1,000 yards? Absolutely, they can.
Yeah, especially if Bradford continues to play like this. we have to temper expectations to some degree because we do have to remember this is the Saints defense. Like Drew said earlier, they've got some playmakers on their defensive line, Sheldon Rankins, Cameron Jordan. They got some playmakers on the back end, guys like Kenny Vaccaro, who's the dude who laid the absolute stick on Diggs that got the 15-yard unnecessary roughness penalty. But as a whole, this unit is largely a work in progress. I mean, there's a reason why the Saints have gone 7-9, 3 out of the last 4 years here, and that's primarily because this defense is just not up to snuff. So the Steelers' defense next week is not much of an upgrade. It's again, Steelers' defense isn't great. That's a team that
it is similar though. I mean, it's not the same. They're in a 3-4, but. It's kind of similar in that their front seven, I guess, or front four is more their strength, and then their back end is kind of where they have concerns. I think that's kind of similar to what we looked at with the Saints.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be talking about the Steelers plenty more later on this week as we move into that matchup, but just pointing it out here that the Vikings offense, it's not sustainable by any means. I mean, you can't expect Bradford to go out there and throw for 340 yards every single night, especially against defenses that are considerably better than the New Orleans Saints. But he did come out here slinging it. We saw him connect with 7 different pass catchers tonight. That's great numbers overall in terms of distributing the football and just keeping all of his guys involved. Jarius Wright, we saw him make a big play on an absolute dime from Sam Bradford. He had, a Jarius Wright night. 2 targets, 1 catch, 21 yards, and a first down. Mm-hmm. That's a Jarius Wright stat line.
First round.
That's why he's on this team.
So 100% of his catches are first downs.
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That sounds about right for Jarius Wright. Let's talk about Laquan Treadwell real quick before we move into the tight end position. Treadwell, 1 catch, 7 yards. Didn't do anything to hurt himself, in my opinion. I think this was more of a product of Thielen and Diggs playing very, very well and getting the majority of the targets. So Treadwell just wasn't as much of a factor. But at the same time, I mean, there is this narrative going on right now that Treadwell needs to prove himself within these first 4 games to keep Michael Floyd off the field. And, I mean, let's just be real. He didn't do that tonight. I'm not saying it's his fault, but he didn't do that tonight. He didn't do anything to suggest that that Michael Floyd wouldn't be an upgrade to him through 1 game. Obviously, he's got 3 more games to do some damage and, change the dynamic of this narrative that I'm laying out for you guys. But I just want to, I'm not trying to knock Treadwell. I'm really not. I'm just saying, let's just keep an eye on this. This is something to watch moving forward. And this is a guy that he still isn't living up to the expectations, whether it's his fault, Sam Bradford's fault, Diggs and Thielen's fault, whoever's it is, the point remains the same, and that's that Laquan Treadwell is not living up to his pre-draft expectations, and there's a guy looming in Michael Floyd who has a lot to prove this season.
Yeah, I mean, it's to the point now where you have a guy in Floyd who's ready to go and who has proved himself as at least at the least a capable wide receiver 3, right?
Right.
And Treadwell hasn't yet. That's what it comes down to. So Treadwell has a couple games here against secondaries that I think can be exploited. I think you have Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay, and is it Detroit week 4?
Yep.
So, I mean, depending on because they did bring Jarius Wright in tonight several times as that third receiver when they wanted to move him in the slot. But as long as I keep Thielen in slot primarily, Treadwell should be getting more reps snaps than Wright. So he'll have his chances. Part of it is, that there's not a lot of chemistry between he and Bradford, and there is a ton between Diggs and Thielen and Bradford. So he does need to make himself more available and take advantage of those opportunities a little bit better, though, because otherwise Michael Floyd's going to take that role from Treadwell.
I think it's also worth noting that since we did this with Latavius Murray, Treadwell missed a lot of time this summer too. Could simply just be a product of him being off the field a lot of the time when guys like Thielen and Diggs, as you said, were building chemistry with Bradford, who they played with considerably more Bradford played with considerably more last season. Obviously, you guys know Laquan Treadwell only 1 catch last season, so the chemistry is still a work in progress there. Not saying that he can't break out in a big way over the next 15 games, but not off to a great start for Laquan Treadwell. So let's move on to the tight end position here. Not a whole lot to love about this position tonight. Vikings didn't really use too many two tight end sets from what I could see with David Morgan and Kyle Rudolph.
Right.
At least not in the passing game. A little bit in the running game. But Rudolph finishes this night with 3 catches for 26 yards and one of the 3 touchdowns that Bradford slung. We saw David Morgan, his highlight for the night, in addition to blocking well for Dalvin Cook on occasion. He also had the fumble recovery when Latavius Murray coughed it up and tried to sway the momentum into the Saints' favor. So that's a big play for David Morgan. What do you think of Kyle Rudolph tonight? Obviously, he gets wide open in the corner of the end zone, and Bradford, once again, as we've said all show already, drops in a dime for his tight end.
Yeah, I mean, we know what Kyle Rudolph brings to the table. He's a very reliable receiver. He's savvy. He knows how to find the soft spot in the zone. And he made himself available tonight in that corner route, very similar to the one Bradford found Rudolph on last year against the Packers, just on the other side of the field. It was very similar to that, and I think he's a big target. It's very sure hands. He and Thielen and I guess Diggs too. All of them are just plucking those balls out of the air
super impressive.
Right. I mean, it's an elite catch when they do that. So, and it's not like the placement's bad. It's just the placement's right there, completely away from the defender, and they just know how to pluck the ball out of the air. So that's obviously super impressive. But the tight end position wasn't used a whole lot outside of Rudolph. A lot of 11 personnel or 21 when you had 2 backs in there on a tight end. So, there's nothing really to say here about David Morgan or Blake Bell. I thought he was in there a little bit. They kind of rotated in as the tight end too in those 2 tight end sets, but not a whole lot to say other than Rudolph is a capable receiver. He's out there and he's reliable, and he's going to be a key cog in the passing game all season.
I mean, how Rudolph is that stat line, though? 3 catches, 26 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, that is a stat line that if extrapolated through 16 games sounds very Kyle Rudolph to me.
Yeah.
That's just the kind of guy he is. He's a great safety net. And
that'd be like 400 yards and like 16 touchdowns or something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what he provides. A lot of touchdown, minimal yards after catch, just a big body guy. That's a good safety blanket for Sam Bradford, and that's exactly what he provided tonight. Mm-hmm. So, onto the offensive line here. I mean, I'm beginning to sound like a broken record here, but what else can you say about these guys? I mean, this front 5 has been demolished since the beginning of this offseason when Spielman goes out and he gets Riley Reif, who isn't the big money free agent that everyone wanted. Obviously, everyone wanted Andrew Whitworth. We kind of, as a fan base, sort of settled for Riley Reif. He comes in, 0 pressures, 0 sacks on that blind side. The left side of the offensive line was at it all night long. I mean, again, what can you say about this guy? Even Mike Remmers, like you said, he had the 1 holding penalty. He had the 1 sack allowed that, 5-yard loss. Elflein was fantastic. Joe Berger looked good moving over to right guard. Nick Easton, I know he was injured for part of the game, missed some time, couple snaps, but he was excellent as well. I mean, this offensive line, man, you said it before, there's some playmakers on that Saints defensive line. They were getting, tough matchups to start the year, and they came through in a big way.
Yeah. I mean, it's a completely it's a 180 from last year. Not that I'm fully trusting in this offensive line moving forward yet, but they gave me plenty of reason to. Sam Bradford had over 3 seconds to throw on several occasions before he still had, it's not like he was getting hit after these throws either, for the most part. You can't really, there's nothing else to say here. They were super impressive. Pat Elflein had a phenomenal rookie debut, both against the run and out in pass protection. Mike Remmers shut up the haters a little bit this week. He's kind of gained some flack through preseason, and I thought he did a phenomenal job handling Cameron Jordan on that side. That was the most impressive part to me. So, a different test next week. It's a 3-4 in Pittsburgh, but it should, this has definitely given, I'm sure, the entire fan base, including myself, a bit of a confidence boost in this unit.
Yeah, Mike Remmers needed this debut, didn't he? He comes out in the preseason, kind of has his ass handed to him a little bit. Vikings fans already very concerned, kind of our brand. But Mike Remmers, like you said, phenomenal opening effort. I mean, we've had concerns about this offensive line, rightfully so, since the get-go, like I said. But my God, they came out with authority. I mean, this is a unit that had a lot to prove, and all we asked of them was to give us average offensive line play. And they did us one step further. They gave us above average offensive line play for 60 minutes. They allowed Sam Bradford to work through all of his progressions, find the open option, and then, you see the accuracy on display. So this offensive line, man, I mean, offensive line is a unit or a position as a whole that you kind of need to watch the all-22 or kind of see a replay before really analyzing the overall performance, simply because, let's be real here, you're not really watching the offensive line unless they do something stupid. So the big thing here, we didn't really hear anyone's name called. We saw consistent effort from Elflein, Reef, and Remmers to go across, and then obviously, you get Easton and Berger mixed in there as well, doing a good job. Nobody was subpar tonight. Everyone was average, and Reef and Elflein, in my personal opinion, were far above average, if not elite, in this single-game individual performance. They performed at a very high level against, a very solid defensive line, I guess. Let's put it that way. Like you said, it's going to be a little bit more exotic next week against Pittsburgh with that 3-4 look, and a lot more stunts and crazy stuff will be thrown their way. So this is a good opening this is a good debut for the new look offensive line. Far greater tests are on the horizon, but this is definitely something we needed to see from this offensive line, especially following a pretty weak offseason performance as a whole. So let's move over to the defensive side of the football. Like I said, just to open the show here, offense didn't start out great. Defense, honestly didn't start out great either. Like I said, Drew Brees kind of drove the Saints down the field to open the game. They end up making the stop, the bend but don't break style, and Will Lutz kicks one of his 4 field goals of the night. That's really the story for me, is that the Vikings were able to hold the Saints offense to 3 points instead of 6. That's the big difference maker for me here. What do you think, from an overall perspective, what do you think of this Vikings defense against, like I said on Twitter a couple times, the number 2 ranked offense in terms of points per game last season, number 1 offense last season in terms of total yardage?
Yeah, I mean, this is an offense that is built on big plays, built on the high octane passing ability of Drew Brees, and for the most part, he wasn't scary. The pass rush got to him a little bit, flustered him. They didn't register the sack numbers that are glamorous by any means, but I think they got to him. They sped up that internal clock, and he looked like road Drew Brees. He looked like the Drew Brees that is a little bit uncomfortable playing away from the Superdome in Louisiana. So, and then you had, Michael Thomas was held in check for the most part. I think he just had a few short catches. Trey Waynes gave up the big play down the sideline, but other than that, I think everything was kept in front of this Vikings defense, and that's kind of the main goal. If Drew Brees hits on a couple of these throws, he had one in the beginning of the game that was, Tommy Lee Lewis beats in Daho. If that's hit, this might be a different game, but
yep.
For the most part, the Vikings defense, it was solid.
It's kind of as advertised, right?
They stepped up when they had to. Those crucial third down plays. That's kind of the thing to take away here. They're going to give up some things. They're going to let a quarterback like Drew Brees get his at times, but they stepped up when they needed to and held the Saints to 3 instead of allowing 6, which I think is a big win and a big positive moving forward.
Well, if you see, this is why the box score doesn't tell the whole story, right? Drew Brees tonight, 27 of 37 for 291 yards passing, 7.9 yards per attempt and 1 touchdown, no interceptions, only sacked 1 time. That was Everson Griffin, by the way. Rating of 104.7. That does not tell the whole story, folks. Drew Brees, for the most part, basically shut out up until garbage time. He comes in, finally gets his touchdown to extend that streak that he loves so much. I believe he now has 109 He has in 109 of his last 113 games, he has a passing touchdown. So put that into perspective what the Vikings defense was able to accomplish tonight. The big thing for me before we start going level by level here is that this is a sustainable performance on defense, right?
Right, yeah.
The Vikings didn't win the game with that pick six like we saw Eric Kendricks get against Tennessee last year. This isn't a 9, 10, 12, 15, 94 sack performance, whatever it was against Carolina last year. This was just a hard-earned effort where the Vikings put pressure on the quarterback from start to finish. They got a couple quarterback hits. They got one sack. They didn't turn over the football on offense. They were able to control the clock, and this defense just basically ran the Saints offense out of the building from start to finish. This is just an overall strong performance that it's not going to necessarily look that way in the box score, but as a whole, this Mike Zimmer defense looked pretty much as good as advertised and kind of what we have come to expect from this unit. So let's move on to the defensive line here, go level by level here. Everson Griffin, as I said, had the one sack. Tom Johnson had a sack called back on a play that was
that was dumb.
That was
dumb.
I would say it was dumb as well, but we're I guess people might call us biased given that we are running a Vikings show here. But we saw Linval Joseph do his thing in both in run defense and to some degree creating pressure up the middle. Danielle Hunter, in my opinion, fairly underwhelming. Again, I'm being nitpicky here. He was creating some pressure here, but when you see Zach Strief, who is their starting right tackle, go out of the game fairly early, I kind of expected Danielle Hunter to really maximize that injury in terms of relative to the Vikings' success. But front four, pretty solid overall, not anything crazy as we've seen in the past, for example, like in Carolina, as I just mentioned. But overall, strong effort, and it got the job done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I thought Hunter was actually a little bit better than maybe you kind of think, just because I thought the pressure was there. I thought the Saints did a couple of extra things, chipping and helping out on that right side. I thought Hunter also got held a lot more times than the referees gave credit for. So I thought Hunter was still made a big impact in the game, and I thought the run defense too. We should talk about obviously Adrian Peterson. But also Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara did not have room to run at all in this game. I think Peterson's first carry of 9 yards was the longest carry of the game for the Saints.
Yep, it was.
And they had, I think, under 3 yards a carry. So, and this run defense has kind of been iffy the last couple of years, and the Vikings really stepped up. Tom Johnson played really well against the run. Really good game from the front four in terms of stopping the run, which again has been Achilles' heel for the Vikings the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, let's quick run through those box score numbers that everyone loves so much for the New Orleans Saints. Adrian Peterson, 6 carries, 18 yards. That's a 3.0 average. His long of 9, as Drew said, came on his very first carry of the night. After that, 9 total yards in his next 5 carries. So Alvin Kamara, 7 carries. He actually is the leader for the Saints tonight in terms of touches out of the backfield. 18 rushing yards, 2.6 average, long of 5. Mark Ingram, 6 carries, 17 yards, 2.8 average, long of 7. Ted Ginn Jr. got the one reverse for 1 yard. 5 yards on one carry, and then John Kuhn, the fullback, 1 carry, 2 yards, 2.0 average, long of 2, obviously. Overall, 21 carries, 60 yards, 2.9 yards average for the Saints rushing attack. Yeah, that Vikings defensive line really set the tone against that rushing offense that Sean Payton was trying to get. It seemed like he was trying to get them going all night long, and despite Drew Brees actually being Drew Brees, putting together a fairly solid statistical performance, they still were unable to, get that ground game going. I know John Gruden was talking about early in the pregame, right before the actual game began, that Adrian Peterson has never played with a passing offense like this, which I would disagree given 2009 Brett Favre, but he was making a point that to some degree is accurate, and it didn't seem to matter. Adrian Peterson, #washed as far as I'm concerned.
#washed.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the thing was neither of us were concerned about Adrian Peterson in this game, and we didn't have any reason to be.
I don't know why anyone was, to be honest with you.
He averaged less than 2 yards a carry last year when he was on the field, and we've known his entire career he hasn't been a pass protector. He hasn't been a guy. I mean, for one thing, he's always been a running back that needs to kind of heat up, get into the rhythm of the game before busting the long play, and he can't get into a rhythm with 5 carries. So, and I think I remember specifically on the last show, I predicted 6 carries, 15 yards for Adrian Peterson. and he wound up with 6 for 18. So I apologize for being wrong about that. I'm so sorry, but I'll try and do better next time. But the whole storyline is overblown. This is just going to be he got out there, he got the first carry of the game.
His name was shown with the starters.
I was surprised that he was booed, though. I really thought
that's disappointing to me.
Kind of disappointed in the fan base for booing him. Recency bias kind of set in, I think.
It's a little bit ironic that these fans sitting in U.S. Bank Stadium, the stadium that Adrian Peterson built in so many ways, had the audacity to boo the guy that basically put them in their seats tonight. So, like Drew said, a little bit disappointed that some fans were booing him, but you know what? It's not my place to tell you who to boo and who to cheer. But me personally, I would have cheered him. I'm happy to see that Adrian Peterson, was received well by some fans. I'm also very happy to see that he came in here and did absolutely nothing, just as we both suggested might be the case. So big props to the Vikings defensive line for being a big part of that, and then also the linebackers. I mean, let's move on to that level now because it works hand in hand here for stopping Adrian Peterson. The guy for me that stood out the most on that second level was Eric Kendricks. We saw him in the backfield early and often, especially during the first quarter. He kind of it seemed like he fell off a little bit after that first quarter, but certainly was not a negative influence by any means. Just wasn't as productive as he had been on the first couple drives for the Saints. Anthony Barr also looked very good in my opinion. We saw him sniff out a screen pass and really lay down the law on Alvin Kamara, kind of gave him his welcome to the NFL rookie moment. And then Ben Gideon, who was actually a starter tonight. So good for Ben Gideon. Really completely based off of the narrative that we had during draft season. I think a lot of people are expecting that pick to kind of not be a great one. But he got on the field tonight. I thought his performance was substandard, but as a rookie to be out there, making plays in such a phenomenal defensive group that, Ben Gideon was all right. I'd probably give him a C effort. Relative to rookies, I'd probably give him a B, but, he got washed on a couple of plays. We saw some growing pains from him. Those are to be expected, but, what did you think of Eric Kendricks, Anthony Barr, and Ben Gideon during this performance?
Yeah, I thought, the one thing I was a little bit concerned with about them was falling for the play action fake, which obviously helps, if you actually establish the run, which the Saints never did. But they didn't bite on that very often. They got beat a couple times by Fleener over the middle on some seam routes, but I thought, Anthony Barr showed he played more like 2015 Anthony Barr than 2016 Anthony Barr. Eric Kendricks made plays shooting the gaps in the run game. They were, Barr and Kendricks and Gideon, to his credit, were big reasons why that running game for the Saints didn't actually get going. I do agree that Gideon on that first screenplay they ran for Kamara that went for I think 15 yards. He got drilled and pancaked and put on his behind. So welcome to the NFL type moment for him. But the fact that he's starting and the fact that he was aside from that he didn't really give up anything major.
No. He wasn't like an impact guy tonight, but he also wasn't a negative either, with exception to the one play.
As a fourth-round rookie to start and at a position really that he didn't play in college, at weak side, on the outside, not in the middle linebacker position. So props to Andy Benoit from MMQB for predicting. I think his tweet from June, he said something about there might be zero starting rookies for the Vikings this year in 2017, and then you have Dalvin Cook, you have Ben Gideon, you have Pat Elflein all making plays in their first start. So, good on you, sir.
Another good take for Andy Benoit. On to the secondary now. You mentioned that Trey Waynes got burned the one time by Tommy Gunn, whatever that guy's name is.
He did allow a passer rating of 140 or something tonight, by the way. Waynes did. Something super high, yeah.
Yeah, well, okay. Waynes was Trey Waynes. He probably, had the most critical errors out of all Vikings defensive players tonight, being that given that Fleener made the one long catch. You saw Tommy Lee make that long catch on Waynes. There wasn't a whole lot of negative quote, explosive plays allowed by the Vikings defense tonight. But Waynes he was the guy who allowed the one, significant reception downfield. I thought he was overall very good, though. I was extremely impressive. I was extremely impressive.
Yeah, you were.
I was extremely impressed with Trey Waynes' tackling, particularly sniffing out screens in the backfield and making solo tackles. Believe this, folks. Trey Waynes led the Vikings in tackles tonight with 11. 9 of those were solo tackles. So how about Trey Waynes as a tackler? I know he wasn't great in pass coverage. That's somewhat to be expected from a number 2 corner, something that I've been trying to, emphasize throughout the offseason here, that he doesn't need to be great playing opposite Xavier Rhodes. That was the case tonight. I mean, we saw the Vikings get a W because Rhodes locked down his side of the field. Waynes was okay, efficient tackler. I mean, what do you think about those 2 cornerbacks, as well as Mackenzie Alexander, who had the one, pass defense on the goal line, and Terrence Newman kind of showed his age a little bit, but was largely effective out of the slot as well.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Waynes was I'm not impressed, but I think it's kind of what you expect from Trey Waynes. The thing about Waynes is I kind of expected he'll give up those short passes, but he gave up the long one, which I thought was concerning. So that's not like Trey Waynes to give that up. And he did, to his credit, he did recover and at least prevent the touchdown. But giving up that play is not usually in Trey Waynes, what we're used to seeing. So not great, not confident, not a confidence booster from my perspective, but Xavier Rhodes did his thing when he was on the field. He was thrown to 3 times and allowed 22 yards total. So, that's Xavier Rhodes being Xavier Rhodes. Shutdown corner. Michael Thomas was contained. I don't think he had
5 catches for 45 yards. His long was 14. He was targeted 8 times.
He didn't have a catch for a 20-yard play or anything. So, Rhodes did his thing. I thought Mackenzie Alexander was fine when he was in the game. Terrence Newman in the slot is a concern just because he's 39 and he's moving slow, and he's not in his prime anymore. He wasn't in his prime 9 years ago. He was in his prime 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So we're way past that point. I think moving him into the slot is it's I think a panic move where Brock isn't available and they kind of had to just pick someone. They didn't trust Alexander, so they went with Newman, and I understand it, but hopefully Brock is available next week for that. But otherwise, DBs were really good today. Anderson Dejo on that one long pass that Breeze missed is kind of the one knock I have on the safeties. But otherwise, I thought Harrison Smith was phenomenal. Anderson Dejo was rock solid.
Harrison Smith just quietly had an absolutely outstanding night. I mean, how Harrison Smith is it to?
Yeah.
I mean, the one impact play that sticks out for me about Harrison Smith, and honestly I don't remember a whole lot else upon first viewing, was the pass breakup that he had downfield. I think it was Michael Thomas. That was the only play that I really sticks out.
He jumped out of his zone, by the way.
Yes.
And just pure instincts.
Yes.
Pure instinct to make that play. And then the thing about it, no celebration at all, just walked back.
Yeah,
got into the huddle.
It was a very Harrison Smith night. I believe he had 6 total tackles, the 1 pass defense, solid effort all around. Anderson Dejo, like you said, if Breeze hits Tommy Lee on that deep ball, maybe a different game, but he didn't, so Anderson Dejo isn't on the hook for that one. Overall, very strong performance from the Vikings DBs. And honestly, 19 points allowed. You take that most of the time. You definitely take that against the Saints offense that, as we've been talking about this entire show and really for the last week here, high-octane vertical attack that Sean Payton does a great job. Mix and matching run and pass here, and the Vikings defense were, largely unimpressed with what Sean Payton carried out tonight. And, testament to the Vikings defense and their preparation. Mike Zimmer said that his defense was going to be ready to go for tonight, and they definitely were. So overall, great performance for the Vikings defense, great performance for the Vikings offense. So that leaves special teams. Special teams for me, Kai Forbath goes 3 for 3. He misses 1 extra point. That seems about par for the course for me. I don't know why he's still missing extra points and still hitting all of his field goals. He's now 18 for 18 as a Viking, and I believe that's 4 missed extra point attempts for him. So that's a little strange, a little bit concerning if you are a Vikings fan, considering how many close games we seem to get into during critical postseason matchups and, finding a way to miss, I don't know, a 27-yard field goal. That kind of thing is, a little bit jarring, maybe a little nerve-wracking, but again, this is I don't see Kai Forbath missing many extra points this season. This one didn't come back to bite the Vikings. Obviously, they come out with a 10-point victory, so it doesn't matter. But Forbath was Kai Forbath. He was consistent. He hit from 45. He did a nice job overall tonight, putting points on the board and making sure that the Vikings were compensated for their effort on offense, being able to drive the ball up and down the field. Ryan Quigley, thought he looked very good as well. Kevin McDermott as a long snapper looked solid to me. Jerick McKinnon as a kick returner maybe needs to kind of get some experience under his belt and know when to take the ball out of the backfield and when not to. I think he pinned the Vikings inside the 15
a couple times
with some questionable returns, I guess, decisions to return the ball, I should say. And Marcus Sherrills was Marcus Sherrills. So overall, special teams look pretty good. Any differing opinion from you?
No, I mean, the extra point thing, I'm not too worried about it. He's still 100% in his Vikings career, Kai Forbath is, and making 3-point field goal attempts. So I'm not worried about Kai Forbath. Right, I'm not worried about Kai Forbath. The Jerick McKinnon thing, I get that. I mean, he did have a couple nice returns, though, taking out of the end zone. I think he brought one to like 35 or so. So, I mean, I'm not completely upset with him bringing out of the end zone. I just, it's risky, and he knows. I think he should know that. I'm sure he knows, too, that, he's going to have some eyes looking at him if he does wind up at the 16 or something, if he does take it out of the end zone, given that he just gave up 9 yards. But otherwise, no, there's nothing much to say on special teams.
Yeah, so Jerick McKinnon just, from the statistical perspective, he had the long of 39 taking it out of the end zone. On the other 3 returns, though, he averaged only 23 yards. So obviously, if you take a knee in the back of the end zone, you get the ball at the 25 now. Yeah. So averaging 23 yards per return on 3 of his 4, like I said, it's an experience thing. He's no Cordarrelle Patterson. He's got some things to learn, but overall, I mean, we saw him get 108 yards as a kick returner tonight. We saw Jerick McKinnon also get 32 yards as a receiver and 5 yards as a rusher with ironically his 10 with a 10-yard long as a rusher as well. So overall, his all-purpose performance tonight was fairly solid, and he started to show the first versatility and flexibility that we've seen from him. And honestly, he looks bigger. I mean, we saw him finish that one catch that you mentioned. Obviously, this isn't special teams, but he's finishing his runs with a lot more authority than we saw him do in the past. I think he's kind of letting people know that he did put on about 15 pounds of muscle this summer. So good for him. Good for the Vikings overall. I mean, give me a grade, Drew. We just went through offense, defense, and special teams. What'd you think from the Vikings as a whole, A, B, C, D, F?
I mean, I'm going to say A. Defense didn't force those turnovers that we're used to seeing, but I think overall they phenomenally played that Ben Bedeau-Brate game, which is fine by me. I mean, they kept the opponent under 20 points, which is kind of that benchmark for the Vikings, and if they keep doing that, I think the Vikings can win games with this offense. So that's an A. I mean, you come out and you win on Monday Night Football. Nothing much more you can really ask for at this point, and the kind of way they did it too. They made a statement, I think. Yeah. So
you put up 29 points on offense. You allow only 19 points on defense. Special teams was effective. Ryan Quigley, I don't think we mentioned him. Actually, had a pretty nice job. Did a pretty nice job punting the ball tonight. I give him an A as well. I mean, this wasn't an overachiever performance, right? This wasn't like an A+++. But what is an A? An A qualifies as a 94%, I think most colleges is in A.
Depends on the class, but
depends on the class.
That's about 90. Maybe you could go AB.
Yeah, there you go. AB, something like that. Overall, I mean that's the system we use at Marquette as well. So I'm perfectly fine with the 3.5 GPA to start the season for the Vikings. Overall, an excellent performance here. So let's wrap up the show now with whatever we got left from the Twitter machine, and then we'll move on to Pittsburgh.
Well, we got Josh Swedland at Swede Skull. He just sent us a pic of. I didn't even know this happened, but he said Dalvin Cook and Mark Ingram did that jersey exchange thing. I thought that was kind of funny. And then he mentioned, I wonder if Cook went to first attempt was Adrian Peterson, and maybe Peterson declined after his salty look at Sean Payton on the sidelines after not getting more than 6 carries. But
hey, props to us, by the way, for not really mentioning Adrian Peterson a whole lot during this show, with exception to about the 3 minutes that we did discuss.
Right now.
I think I did see that Dalvin Cook and Adrian Peterson engaged after the game, so
it wouldn't surprise me if Cook was like, "Can we do a jersey exchange?" and Pearson goes, "Nah." That wouldn't surprise me. But
it would be, the jersey exchange is interesting just because who the hell wants an Adrian Peterson Saints jersey?
I think it's so fun. It's blown out of proportion. You see like Calvin Johnson jersey exchange with like freaking Jarius Wright sometimes or something like that. And it's like
a lot of it is just
what is this connection?
It's a lot of it is like the friendships that they build off the field. They just go and find their workout buddy. Jersey swaps are cool. It's a fun respect thing, and I'm glad the NFL does it. But this question, it's funny. I like that he asked this question. But for us to say to speculate that Adrian Peterson denied, that would just
I'm sure he wasn't completely serious posting it.
Right. And that's what I said. It's fun. It's a funny thing to think about, but let's not take it too seriously. That's kind of my answer here.
Mike Kraus at mkraus28 is asking if we think both Diggs and Thielen will get over 1,000 yards this season.
I'm going to say no, just because I'm not going to jump to conclusions after tonight. I'm very, very excited about what both of those guys offer. I think they certainly have the potential to both go over 1,000 yards, but I absolutely don't see Sam Bradford throwing for 300 yards every single game, and that's kind of what it would take in order for both guys to go over 1,000. So I do see one of them going over. I know Drew thinks Thielen. I'm going to stick with Diggs just because I think this show works better if we contrast a little bit more. And honestly, that's also kind of my feeling is that Diggs is kind of the guy. But no, I don't see both of them going over 1,000. I see both of them combining for something like 2,000. But I think one of them will heavily outweigh the other as we sort of see the season progress here. And Sam Bradford really finds out who his number one target is going to be.
Yeah, I like Thielen to get 1,200 receiving yards. I've said that for a couple months now, and I think it's going to happen. This is definitely a good start for Thielen to get there. So that's my take on that. Our last question here, it's kind of a multi-part one, and kind of, we've talked on a bunch of these points already, so we can just kind of quickly go through these. But Damon Omad 1 at Damon Omad 1, he's asking us for our take on Trey Wayne's performance, and then the time Sam Bradford had to throw on the offensive line. So I'll just say, with Wayne's, I'll kind of repeat what I said.
Give me a grade for it. Give me a grade for Trey Wayne's performance. A, B, C, D, F.
Well, I can't give him a C. I'm gonna have to go D plus. Because I think, obviously the tackling was really good. I better give him a C. The tackling was really good. So
I'm gonna give him a B, C. To go along with what we were just working with, the system, the style we were just using. I think that he was a little bit above average because of how great he was an A tackler and probably like a C, D coverage man tonight. So that, to me, works out to about a B, C performance for Trey Wayne's.
I'd go, something
I'm
like
okay
that.
with lower
really
than
good
that.
Tackler. Coverage wasn't great, and he gave up a big play, so you can't give him to me, you can't give him better than average.
I don't think you can give him much better than a BC strictly because the Vikings gave up one explosive play tonight, and that was on his hands. So, and also to your point from earlier, Trey Wayne should not be allowing 9 routes ever. Like he should never get beaten. So that's a good. Overall, solid, excellent performance as a tackler. Subpar to somewhat disastrous performance in coverage tonight, just not great. I obviously expect him to regress to the mean in both aspects moving forward here. But
and then the offensive line, give a grade.
I'm giving him an A.
Relative
to the Vikings, it's like an A,000, whatever, what comes before A, an A+++, relative to what we expected. But relative to the rest of the league, still very, very strong performance. Sam Bradford had time to throw tonight. How about that? I'm pumped about the offensive line performance. So they get a flat out, they get a hard A from me.
So far, those contracts for Reef and Remmers, so far, it's one game. It's one game. But so far, those are two really, really good contracts.
Rick Spielman was smiling.
We'll see how well those things, how well that statement travels in time here. But so far, very good. And the offensive line, very, very good debut for those five guys that have not played a snap together until tonight. Phenomenal performance.
Yeah. Excellent week 1 performance for the Vikings here. Very typical Vikings here, or I should say it would be very typical Vikings to start us off on a very high note, only to slowly hurt.
Very 2016.
Yeah, slowly bury us over the course of the rest.
Oh,
of the
by
season.
the way, we should update on the our pick'em, our picks for the week 1.
I can do that. So the week 1 picks, if you are keeping track of Drew and myself, 15 games this week. I went 6-9. Drew went 9-6.
Nice.
So he's off to a 3-game start, 3-game head start on me in our pick'ems for this week. So obviously I'll have some catching up to do next week. But until then, we got, like I said before, early on in the show, we will have some more in-depth analysis. Well, I guess since this will be on Wednesday, so right back at you in about 24 hours here, because it is a short week after the Monday Night Football performance.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and so from there, after we get into that more in-depth stuff on this game, we'll jump right into Pittsburgh later on this week, preview them, and our pregame show, which was largely a massive fail today as a result of some technical difficulties, that will be back in a big way next Monday, as we expect to have all that figured out. So in the meantime, you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, VikingsTerritory.com as always. Make sure to subscribe and review if you haven't. And find us on Twitter at VikingsATL Pod. Myself, Robert Reidell, Reidell, Drew Mahowald, Mahowald. Thanks as always for joining us. Looking forward to an excellent season of Vikings football and, of course, an excellent season of the About the Labor podcast. So thanks for joining us, and we will catch you guys later on this week.